Welcome everybody to our session today. I'm glad to have with me very distinguished panelists. I'm gonna introduce them. We have Marina Rosso Siverino, who is co-founder for Del Plata Green. Jonathan LaCour, CTO for Mission Cloud, a CDW company. I'm sorry. And Frederick Royan, our growth expert and global practice area leader for sustainability and circular economy at Frost & Sullivan, as well as Jan Fresco, member of the advisory team, also with Frost & Sullivan. Now, just for your reference, in terms of dynamics of this webinar, we will be having a couple of rounds of questions, but also some debate among the panelists, poll questions for some interaction, and as Julieta said, we will be getting Q&A from the audience too. Okay. With all that said, let's get started. And I'm gonna throw my initial question that I think goes straight to the point in terms of the title of the webinar today, because I want to start talking about the environmental impact of cloud operations. So for all the panelists, I would say that the question is, what are the most relevant metrics today to measure and to communicate also the environmental impact of cloud operations? I don't know who wants to start. Maybe Fred, you want to take the lead here, and then we pass it over to Marina, Jonathan, and Jan.
Yeah, thanks, Ignacio. Great to join you and the team on this topic of sustainable clouds. And I think when I look at this, and it's a topic we've looked at recently as well in some of our research on decarbonization of the cloud computing space. And on environmental metrics, I think you can talk about power is certainly a huge metric. But one of the interesting metrics for me is water, right? Because water is becoming quite an interesting aspect, right? So people talk about the PUE aspect, which is the power utilization efficiency, which is a good metric. But for me, water utilization efficiency is also coming up. And, so I think, when you look at environmental metrics, yes, to keep power usage utilization as well as the water utilization efficiency metrics, right? But I think when you look at sustainability, the opportunity, if you look at a sustainable cloud, is to treat it as an asset, right? So one of the acronyms which I'm kind of coining or playing around is the asset utilization efficiency as an AUE, right? How can you think of the cloud as, as an asset? Because sometimes the cloud's not fully utilized, right? And how can you then drive the asset utilization aspect and then also then bring in the environmental aspects of making sure the power utilization and the water utilization efficiency is quite important? Because water security is a big topic around the world right now, right? We've had cases in the past where data centers have posed a risk to the energy security of cities. Data centers in Europe, right? In Amsterdam, for example, the energy consumption of a data center there is equal to the energy consumption for the whole city of Amsterdam, right? So we don't want that additional risk now to kind of, to use the term, overflow into water, where water security also becomes an issue, right? So when you look at metrics, those are the kind of metrics I would look at, not just power and water, but to start thinking about the aspect of asset utilization efficiency, where then you can not only see how the cloud is drawing some of these resources, but also helping in trading some of these resources. We've seen examples in Scandinavia where the entire heat aspect, district heating is also being looked at and drawing from the cloud. But keen to hear the thoughts from the other panelists as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Jonathan, you have muted yourself. You want to go ahead?
I was just getting ready, but I'll take it. Thanks for having me, by the way. Good to see everybody. So I actually love Frederick brought up PUE, right? I actually think that's one of the best metrics we have. And it's, for those of you who have not heard of it before, it's actually defined by ISO. So this is like a industry metric that is reported globally from, many data center providers and cloud providers. Mission, the company I work for, we're 100% focused on AWS. And so we obviously have a lot of engagement with them around sort of sustainability goals and on behalf of our customers and for ourselves. And PUE is something that they report on an annual basis. For reference, 1.0 is a perfect PUE score, right? It means you're fully optimized. There's nothing else you can do, right? And if you look at the global kind of data center outside the hyperscalers, it's like something like 1.6, I think, or maybe 1.7, sort of at the industry level. Whereas the hyperscalers kind of are closer to 1.1, 1.2 in that kind of range. And it does depend by region. So Frederick, you talked about that a lot as well, of, being considerate of the places where we put physical infrastructure, and hyperscalers have to do that. And you can actually align directly to sort of the best places, most efficient places by looking at the cost, right? That is a very convenient thing for those of us, for my customers who are deploying all of their workloads on AWS, is what region is the least expensive? Cost is actually a proxy for sustainability in some ways, right? It's like efficiency. The more efficient AWS can be, they will share that with you as the customer. So understanding region selection, understanding PUE, holding your vendors accountable to that, right? I don't operate many data centers anymore. I used to work in a business where we had data center presence. So my impact, or my customer's impact, is primarily about leveraging the tools that are given to us by hyperscalers, making decisions that are thoughtful and take into account things like Frederick was talking about: water, power, what are the sources. And so understanding those proxies, looking at the available metrics, is kind of the key and critical thing there.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Great insights. But I mean, let's broaden a little bit the lens and look at what's the overall environmental impact of cloud infrastructure. Marina, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Let me start with a small observation. I am speaking to you from the southern hemisphere, where it's the winter, about 15 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius in Buenos Aires. We wanted to up Star but some people stay with the beach, no? And their home heating to the 17 and 18 degrees, far higher than they need. That's not sustainability. The same principles apply to the big cloud, or more precisely, to the many data centers around the world that make up the cloud. It is the cloud, many data centers around the world. That is show about wasting energy and water at home. We must ensure this facility use electricity and cooling water responsibly. It's the same principles apply.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Jan, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, building on that, I'd say that, to understand the dynamics of sustainability and cloud computing, we need to, first distinguish between providers and consumers, right? And the combined effect, as you were saying, cloud adoption, because on the one hand, as Frederick was saying, we have the environmental impact of cloud computing providers who rely on energy and water demanding infrastructure, of course. And on the other, we have consumers, right, who benefit from reducing the environmental impact by avoiding storing data on premises, for example, and relying instead on efficient data centers that have higher utilization rates. So my belief is that this creates a story of two sides, right? And both providers and consumers face the challenge of transitioning into greener practices, and they're often subject to local regulations and social pressures, right? But just to put things into perspective and to continue the conversation, let me quickly just go over some data, right? I was reading just a study published last year by two authors, Buya and Illiger, and they affirm that data centers that power the cloud are projected to consume up to 20% of global electricity and contribute up to 5.5% of the world's carbon emissions by 2025, right? And similar data goes for water consumption, right? Where key providers such as Google, for example, disclosed that last year they consumed nearly 22.7 billion liters of water, which of course is a lot, right? So that said, I'd love to hear everyone else's views on this and how you believe the industry is coping with all of this. So I open up to everyone else. Sorry, Nacho, I'm not trying to take your place here.
Yeah, you are. but it's a very interesting question. I don't know who wants to.
Yeah, I think on the water side again, right? And this is where I think it's two sides of the coin. If you look at Microsoft, they have a goal to be water positive by 2030, right? The reason they're doing that is they're trying to balance the fact that they are definitely going to be consuming significant volumes of water from the hyperscale aspect of it. But as they're doing that, how are they going to compensate it with either replenishment or conversation projects, right? So we're seeing the water sector is benefiting from this. So in say for example South Africa and even in Europe, right? Microsoft now is actually financing projects for water conservation and water replenishment, right? So this is what I think, it is the kind of a footprint and handprint angle. We can talk about it. I have this framework, we call it the 6P framework of the future of sustainability and the circular economy. And the first P is policies, So, I mean, here in this case, it is Microsoft having a policy to be, water positive by 2030. But that then is shaping the actual products, for these kind of solutions. And then it's influencing processes. Because the kind of areas that Microsoft is now financing is, say, for example, leakage reduction in water utilities. So water utilities lose around 30, 40, 50%, and that's a huge efficiency loss in water utilities, right? So they benefit from this. And say, for example, people and productivity is my fourth P, fifth P is partnerships, and the sixth is a platform, right? Here, by having this accounting mechanism, it's also providing quite an interesting mechanism of water credits. So we are finding some really interesting new business models which are coming to place, right? So I think, yes, it is going to be an additional load in terms of the water withdrawals in cities, no doubt about it. Data centers will have that additional pressure, but there's an opportunity should they take the design of these data centers right from the drawing board and making them sustainable, where they're able to not just operate sustainably, but also be able to deliver some sustainable outcomes in these that they're operating. I think it's a win-win solution, so provided, all the regulators, do their job and the various actors play their role, right? But that is an opportunity. I think we definitely see in the water sector even the cloud operations is benefiting water utilities as well. So it's it's not to say that water utilities are going to lose out. But the other angle of how even the cloud is going to be beneficial for customers, as Jan was saying, right? It's not just the producers, the consumers. Because since the consumers are storing their data in the cloud, here's an opportunity for the cloud providers to support these consumers in structuring their data and supporting them in developing their own sustainability development plans and also implementing these plans. So you can see some synergies coming through here, right? So I think it's, for me, digital sustainability is quite a transformative journey that all of us are undergoing, and it's universal across industries, right? And the benefit of digital sustainability, I call the 3 S's of digital sustainability. And the 3 S's of digital sustainability are scale, speed, and stewardship, right? And this is what I think is the exciting opportunity. With cloud, you're able to drive scale, speed, but the most important thing is to do it in a manner which is showcasing stewardship and sustainable stewardship. And as we see many of these actors doing this, I think there was another example now. Google is funding projects worth close to $6 million in the US now. Why are they doing that, right? In the water sector in the US. It is a balancing mechanism some of these hyperscalers are trying to support, right? So when you talk about sustainable cloud, yes, the infrastructure of that is going to have a footprint, but we have some interesting handprints as well that we see emerging in this space.
Okay, yeah, I mean, excellent. But Ian, I mean, having heard Fred's answer, I mean, do you want to rephrase the question for Marina and Jonathan? Do you still have the same question you're willing to ask?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Now that you are the host of the panel.
Now that I'm the host. Yeah, I would just love to hear their views on, just as Fred was talking, the 2 sides of the pie here, right? From, the providers and the consumers, and how everyone's reacting to the pressures that they have, and, how it impacts the environment in general.
Okay, all right. Who wants to? Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead.
So, Frederick, that was really good, I think, overview and helping people understand a little bit about both sides here, right? So my commitment as a business is most frequently with our customers who are consumers, right? They're using the cloud, but we also obviously are partnered heavily with AWS, and their job is as the producer, right? And they have to do so in a sustainable fashion. And I think it's really interesting if you look at sort of incentives. To me, that is the simplest way to predict behavior is to look at the incentives that are being, created here. And I totally agree with you that all of the hyperscalers are making these commitments, which are good and important for them to make. AWS also has the 2030 sort of neutrality on water. They have a 2040 where all of their consumption is aligned to renewables. But it also is important that we look a layer or 2 deeper about what that means and how it's being accomplished, right? And this is, it's a little bit of a controversial thing, but I'll go ahead and put my opinion out there in the world. Offsets, in my opinion, are not a one-to-one in terms of value as actually doing the thing, right? Actually saying I'm going to consume my energy is coming from renewable sources rather than I'm getting energy from dirty sources and I'm paying to, offset that. Now, this is a useful thing for us now at the current time that we live in, the current state of the world in terms of energy capacity that can be produced by renewables. And there's no question that the sort of offsets help build out that infrastructure. But the utility of that should go away at some stage, right? We should be in a position as a planet, right? Where we are producing all of our energy from renewable sources. But if you look at the incentives on, so my incentives are aligned to cost, right? That's a beautiful thing, is more efficient consumption of cloud means lower bills. Customers love that. That's obviously an easy decision. If you are, say, a large scale AI kind of business and you're training foundation models and you are rapidly building out data centers, we're in a gold rush right now, right? The incentives for those players are completely misaligned with sustainability, completely misaligned. And you can see this specifically to call out a business or two. If you look at XAI, XAI is a terrible actor in this particular category, right? They are in Tennessee spinning up, natural gas turbines and then not being honest or truthful about it and claiming to be a business that cares about it. Their behavior indicates otherwise, right? And so, the answer to that is, generally speaking, you have to create incentives that they have no choice but to follow, which is usually through regulation, which, again, controversial topic for technologists. We certainly don't want to stifle innovation, but we do want to prioritize, having a planet that exists to use that innovation. So to me, that is a big thing, is understanding what offsets are, understanding their utility and what they're providing, but also understanding that it's not a one-to-one. And, where incentives are not aligned to the ultimate goal of sustainability, sometimes you have to regulate, right?
Okay, I'm gonna stop the ball here for a second, and I'm gonna make this question a little bit more complex, okay? If it's not enough already. Uh, and I'm doing this just to, regain the control of this session because Ian is threatening my host role. But Jan, I'm gonna throw this one to you, and then I will continue with Marina. I don't want her to hate me because of complicating the question and put her on the spot. So I'm gonna do this with you, Jan, first, because we are talking about these, let's say two sides of the coin. I mean, cloud providers, consumers. But I want to add an ingredient here, and I'm talking about business models, okay? Because I think, and I mean, at least in theory, and that you can, of course, answer and yes or no, and with the examples. The the thing is that there must be examples showing that cloud can enable sustainable but also profitable business models. Okay, so I'm thinking about I don't know, in agriculture, uh, in ICT, telecoms, or technology. I don't know, many others, perhaps healthcare. So what do you think about this angle, Ian?
No, I 100% agree with you. I'd say that we could look at it again from both sides. Sorry for repeating my strategy, but yeah, we can look at both sides. From the positive side, of course, we have business. Well, we have, from the cloud standpoint, we have cloud providers helping not only businesses but also governments. They are automatizing processes, reducing paper, digitalizing. Cloud it's clearly really helpful to move on over from paper to digitalization of processes and automatizing all of that, of course. So I'd say that from the positive, there's a lot to gain when it comes to cloud, right? And when it comes from the when going back to the negative side, of course, we have real cases where the environmental impact is also creating conflicts. For example, in Latin America, right? A region which is known to be quite sensitive to the environmental impact that cloud computing entails. And here, Marina can obviously speak to this. But of course, we have the case of Google, right, where in Uruguay, where it best exemplifies here these issues, right? Just a couple of years ago, the company has had a plan to, and is currently building a major data center. But that really sparked significant public backlash, because when Google announced that the project had an estimated 7.6 million liters of water per day for cooling, the public went berserk, right? I mean, they were suffering even the worst drought in over 70 years, and then Google announced that, so that kind of generated this public backlash. So this created severe conflict and led to widespread opposition, and led to Google having to recalculate their strategy and scale back their scope, and switch over to air cooling instead of water. So what I'm going with this is, of course, there are a lot of positive things that you can gain from cloud, but providers need to understand that when they move over to new regions, they need to understand also the social panorama that's behind that, because it could possibly have negative impacts, socially and environmentally.
Okay, great. And so, Marina, I mean, same question for you, but maybe, I mean, I would start with perhaps, I mean, with you commenting on how the Plata Green helps companies in their sustainability journey, okay? And then in that way, we can see these real world examples and how, sustainability connects with the cloud, okay?
Okay. Bueno, the journey began with saving energy. We are, my notes.
You got mute there.
I know.
Can you hear us, Marina?
Yeah, please, let me, my notes.
Okay.
Okay. Bueno, the Plata Green, we guide company through every stage of the sustainability journey. We start by assessing the current environmental footprint, energy, water, the bill of energy, the bill of water, carbon and supply chain impact, and benchmarking against industrial standards. Then we design practical data-driven strategy that align with the BAT's business goal and ESG targets. Because this includes optimizing digital infrastructure, integrating renewable energy, and implementing transparent report. This is very, very difficult in a small company, no? The reporting. And they can community progress to stakeholders. Our role is to make sustainability actionable, measurable, and profit. It is very, very difficult in Latin America, and the medium and a small company. It's very difficult in the large company. For a smaller operator, the key is to embed the sustainability from the start, not its after through. This means choosing cloud providers with a strong renewable energy commitments. For example, in this country, Amazon, no? Oracle. Design workloads for efficiency and taking advantage of shared infrastructure. Yes, the cloud is saving for shared infrastructure. It's a point of view of the journey. This is for many important for our clients. Our clients need investment, and the obtained investment is to demonstrate at the bank your journey in sustainability. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if Jonathan or Fred want to chime in terms of I mean discussing these business models, let's say, enabled
Yeah.
by the cloud.
In the case of business models, one of the interesting areas that we've been looking at is circular data centers, right? So, I mean, if you look at the infrastructure that's going to be already in place, but also going to be set up, right, is quite significant. But there's an excellent opportunity to see how you can create circular data centers. If you look at the space itself, and you know the fact that it's dominated by the hyperscalers, there's an excellent opportunity for the hyperscalers to see how they influence the design of the various components which goes into the data centers, right? Making sure that they are sustainable right from the design stage, in terms of embodied carbon, designed for repair, designed for sustainability, all those principles, applying key aspects like an LCA or a digital passport, so really has a strong influence. The hyperscalers have this huge influence. They can do that, right? And we see, for good, that even organizations like Microsoft, have come with that initiative to, see how they can design circular data centers. Because I think, it's not about recycling some of these equipments. How can you repurpose and reuse some of these equipments so that you can have not just a first life, but also a second life for these equipments, right? Because by doing that, you're really kind of significantly reducing the kind of environmental burden which we're going to expect, especially since we're going to see a far more exponential growth, because of the onset of AI that we've had in the last few years. So I think circular data centers is a very interesting business model. Then the sustainable cloud as well, Ignacio, because that is quite an exciting opportunity where the producers supporting the consumers. So it's a very interesting opportunity there. And I will also say water credits. Water credits is an interesting area, and this entire circular economy trading of materials and assets, and I get back to this term of the asset utilization efficiency, so start thinking about a data center as an asset, where an asset can not just be maintained, but also renewed, refurbished, refinanced, reused, and repurposed, right? It becomes an asset in itself, right?
In
And
terms
I
of
think that
the kind of a life cycle of the asset, I mean,
exactly, you can start doing things like track and tracing. You can start, and it'll really bring in some exciting opportunities, both from logistics, from buildings, but also from the O&M side of it. And it can drive some really strong sustainable credentials for this sector.
Okay. Jonathan, do you want to add something, or we look at
Sure.
the outcome of the poll?
Yeah, so I think, when you talk about sort of on the consumer side business models, I think there's interest there as well, right? And sort of how we consume resources from the hyperscalers. So I'll give you an example. AWS years ago now introduced AWS Lambda, right, which is a serverless compute platform, right? And part of their business model is we want to give our customers this amazing tool, which helps them better align their actual need with their actual utilization of the resources in the data center, right? And it also drives behavior on the consumer side, right? Whereas if, I'm an engineer, so for many years I can remember going to my leadership and saying, hey, I'd like to refactor this thing, right? I can make it more efficient. And the answer was consistently, we don't have time for that, right? We have this other thing to do. Show me the numbers and we can talk about it. Well, back then we weren't building microservices because I'm an old man. We were building monoliths, right? And it did matter because you'd have to completely look at the entire workload, and making an optimization at one part of it may not be able to translate into dollars and cents for the business. However, when you have something like Lambda, every single aspect of your code, which is built of hundreds or thousands of these things, right? You can go down to a function level and say, this one piece of my code right here is inefficient, and I can make it 70% more efficient. I have proven that I can do that. And that translates into exactly this many dollars and cents down to the penny. Now the developer is having a conversation aligned with his own interests or her own interests. I want to refactor, I want to optimize, and I can give you a good business reason to do that, which is supporting from a business model the right sorts of behavior. And AWS says, wow, we're selling a lot more serverless. We should continue to build more. Right. And so to me, it's like this end to end. You have to look at every layer across the producer and the consumer. Those business models matter significantly, right? And it isn't always like that. And when it is, it's magic, right? Because everyone is chasing towards the same end goal: more and more efficiency, more and more cost efficiency, and energy and water efficiency.
Okay, Ian, satisfied? Or you want to continue?
No,
asking
absolutely.
questions, extracting knowledge from this panel?
Yeah, no, they're wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I have here results of our poll question to refresh your memory. I mean, we asked which factor will have the biggest impact on making cloud computing more sustainable over the next 5 years, okay? And the options were energy efficiency on data centers, transition to renewable energy, AI and analytics for workload optimization, supply chain and hardware lifecycle management, and regulatory pressure and reporting requirements. And well, I guess I'm reading here the percentages live. The main conclusion for me is that the audience thinks there is no silver bullet. I mean, that there is no single solution factor or variable that will make the biggest impact. Okay, we can say, well, the preference, the first ranking goes to transition to renewables. That is 40%. I guess it makes sense. I mean, it's very visible. It's very tangible. Really, truly connected to sustainability. Of course, or I mean, I don't know what the rest of the panel thinks. I'll give you the mic in a minute. But this is also the one that is most publicly alluded to by hyperscalers. Okay, that they do communicate a lot about their transition to renewable energy. And next in the list is energy efficiency, and maybe the more tech-oriented part of the audience. The engineers that are with us today are perhaps taking this one into account. Of course, optimizing can give you a quick and tangible, measurable solution or impact, let's say. And so those were the first one and two. Transition to renewables and energy efficiency. So I don't know if you guys want to make a comment on this outcome of the poll, Jonathan, or I don't know, Marina, Jan, Fred.
Yeah, I can give a short one on that. I think if you see the power purchase agreements, right, it is really established, right? So it's not a surprise that that's number one, because that's quite an established aspect, and the infrastructure, the service models are in place. And it's something which most of these hyperscalers, as well as you rightly said, have really invested in doing that. And that will certainly remain the case, right? I think what will be interesting is going forward as we start seeing the water agenda picking up, right? You know, what are these aspects on water and other aspects coming into the equation, and how is that going to influence this space, right? So will it take the same road as the power purchase agreements? You know, is it going to be slightly different? You know, so how is going to be that response? But also then, you know, I think the entire circular data centers is for me quite an interesting opportunity, simply because, you know, we're going to start living in an age where, you know, the replacement of the equipment in some of these data centers might be much more quicker than what it used to be in the past. The churn rate is going to be much more quicker, right? Then how is that going to support, or will the infrastructure and the service mechanisms be in place to even support that opportunity? Because with the quicker churn, there's an opportunity, but we need to have the infrastructure, the logistics, and you know, the service infrastructure to be able to support that circular data center setup. And for me, that is, you know, a really exciting opportunity to see how that gets set up in the coming years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. And I would
Go
also
ahead.
add, you know, looking at this poll results, I mean, it makes complete sense, you know, how, you know, energy consumption and of course renewable energy go hand by hand. And going back to a point that Jonathan made before, of course, behind that it lies the incentives that go within that with both of them, which is of course cost. Right. So if you reduce energy and if you go to renewable energy sources, eventually you're going to end up reducing costs that come with traditional energy sources. So of course it makes complete sense that both the industry is looking at both at the same time, right? Moving from traditional energy and going to renewable energy sources. That was my take on this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. Great. I want to ask the panel about, you know, okay, I mean, we have been discussing this topic for some time, and I mean, something is still like lingering, and it's the need to accelerate. Okay, we need to really accelerate this combination of sustainability and digital transformation. Okay, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, what should cloud providers, customers, regulators, any stakeholder here, what should they do to, you know, help accelerate this change that we have been discussing?
Yeah, so I'll
Go
dive in
ahead.
and give
Go
you.
ahead, Jonathan.
I do think that my earlier comment on incentives is probably the most powerful thing that can be done, but it does vary by these different actors, right? So governments, what they can do is they can require it. They can, you know, again, not popular. People don't like this, but it is the one of the most powerful levers that we have is, you know, you can behave in no other way than the right way, right? That is sort of the most powerful lever. In absence of that, though, I also think that there are a lot of businesses, especially these bigger businesses like hyperscalers and data center providers, that actually do care, right? They're putting out commitments, which we talked about with Microsoft and Google and AWS. Those are important, right? Because what they're doing is saying, here is our value, here is our culture. This is a thing that matters to us. Hold us accountable, right? As consumers. And I think that's great. I think it's an extremely valuable thing that these hyperscalers are putting these commitments out in the public without being asked to do it per se, right? But they're not just doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're also doing it because consumers are asking for it. They're saying, I care. This is part of my values in my business, right? From a cultural perspective, an ethical perspective. This is something that is critical to me. Tell me what you're doing so that I will, buy my, cloud resources from you, right? And so, it's action. What can we do? We can take action. We can hold people to commitments. If there isn't, if you are going to a data center provider, a smaller data center provider, not a hyperscaler, asking them, what is your commitment? Do you have one? Can you show me how you've performed over the last 5 to 10 years? That's what we can do is number one, most actively is to care, right? Care about it. Don't just require a financial incentive. Do it because you want to, right? So that thing number one is change your culture. Make it clear that it matters. Educate the market. Educate your own sort of company on that topic. And then, it sort of flows downhill from there, right? If we are holding the data center providers and the cloud providers accountable to their commitments, they will continue to do that. They will continue to drive those behaviors. And I do think, while I did say I don't care for offsets as much as I care for actual change, it is important to make those investments in energy, right? In the short term, that's a completely reasonable way to flood investment into the development of renewables and driving that transition. And what you want to see is the cost per, unit of energy flop from being cheaper to do it the wrong way to being cheaper to do it the right way. We're actually already there in most cases in many places around the world. Wind, solar, these are highly efficient, very low cost now, and all of the others as well. So those are some of the actions. Change your culture, hold your vendors accountable to it, educate your own teams, and then make your actions flow from that.
Okay, I'm gonna make a pause here because we also have questions from the audience, and there is one that I think is very interesting. And the question is, what about nuclear energy in data center? Is this a sustainability initiative? What do you say?
I'm very glad that I didn't have to jump on this grenade because I just spoke. Somebody else has to go first.
Yeah, I think, to take a call on that, right? I mean, there's a very interesting initiative called the Green Taxonomy, which is being developed in Europe, right? And this is exactly what it's trying to do, to classify the different aspects of energy, right? And the debate is out there when it comes to nuclear energy, right? So I think, aspects like a green taxonomy will certainly be important. And, is it a sustainability initiative? I think, it all will depend on how responsible this particular aspect is going to be, right? I'll have to twist this question to your previous question as well, because in a way it links to the question which you asked, Ignacio. How can we scale sustainability in data centers, right? And it really links to the point which Jonathan was talking as well, right? What we're looking at the industry, when you look at consumers, right? Every single consumer is looking at transforming towards net zero, right? But they have a huge challenge because most of the sectors in industries are far behind than where they need to be today. And there's a lot needs to be done in a much more shorter span of time. And the only way they're going to achieve that, one of the tools is going to be digital tools, how they're going to map the workflows and the aspects. And the data center industry is going to be keen to see how that is going to be supported, right? So, when you're looking at scaling sustainability, I think it will depend on a large case of a B2B partnership between the producers and the consumers, right? Where the consumers will see the benefit of how they're going to use digital in mapping their workflows, identifying synergies between the processes of water, energy, and materials. How can digital actually scale their innovation speed, right? I mean, if innovation in some of the sectors is taking a few years, how can you shorten that, time period and bring in that digital productivity aspect into this, right? So, that I think is the B2B opportunity where, yes, you will scale data centers, but also can that then scale the transition that we want to see or the transformation that we want to see across industries to reach net zero? Because all of them are facing a significant challenge and are far behind where they need to be. Even, say, for example, water utilities right now, right? They have a goal to be net zero by 2030, right? That's a huge challenge. In the next 5 years, the water utilities need to be achieving that, right? And there are various kind of, what should I say, pathways that they have. And, and digital and kind of, what should I say, process workflows and the other aspects are going to be crucial in seeing how they achieve this particular goal. So for me, scale, speed, and stewardship, right, is going to be a B2B opportunity. And regulation is going to be a key part. It's good Jonathan mentioned that as well, because I think a regulator will have an important role to play, not just to ensure that it's the consumers, but also the producers are held to task when they say that they've made commitments, that they're doing it in a proper manner. And even Marina mentioned about the transparency and reporting one, right? How transparent are you when you're committing to this? So right from the enterprises, when you're communicating to it, how transparent are you? But also the consumers. And one last point, it was very interesting that Jonathan mentioned, sustainability is being driven by the consumer across the board. We did a very interesting survey for Autodesk. I think we published a white paper on digital sustainability, and this was in architecture, engineering, construction, and the discrete industry. And we asked 600 consumers, what is driving sustainability in your organization? Legislation came at number 6. Number 1 and 2 was customer expectations and customer retention. And even in the top 5, one of the interesting things was attracting and retaining talent. So these are the things which are driving sustainability in organizations. And I think it will not be any different, even if you look at the cloud space, things like attracting and retaining talent, customer retention, but also meeting customer expectations. Those are the key drivers that will scale sustainability in this space.
Thank you for sharing that, Frederick. I love that number. Those are real interesting, critical ways for us to see that the world is working as it should, right? People are having influence up. They are going upward to their leaders, who are then going outward to their vendors. And that's very encouraging, right? So when we're talking about what can businesses do, we are all, the business is its people, right? And so if we are holding our own leaders to those sort of values, I think that's really wonderful to hear that is a fact. I did not know that, so it's excellent information. Gives me hope for the world.
Okay, we have just 4 minutes, or maybe 5. I want to go over the results of the second poll. Remember the question was, how prepared is your organization to integrate sustainability metrics into your cloud strategy? And early stage came out first with some 40%, partially ready 35%. So we have nearly 75 of the room that is still in the early or partial stages, which I guess that means that the competitive advantage is wide open for those who move faster. The panel has been very interesting, but we have to start to close the session today. Do you want to have I don't know, make a final 30 seconds comment? Any of you, Marina, Jonathan, in particular, that have been our guests today, or I know Fred has a few slides that we would like to show before we close the session, but maybe Jonathan or Marina, yeah, go ahead, please.
In closing, sustainability in the cloud is not just about technology. It's about choice.
Yeah.
The same way we use choice to heat and warm homes, we must design, operate, and regulate our digital infrastructure quickly. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you, Marina.
My last two-second thing is to the audience. Marina here is as a company that is really focused on that, right? And so I do think that reaching out and using their services is probably one of the best things you can do. Similarly, if you are on AWS Mission Cloud, we do that all day long, advise our customers on how to save money, reduce their utilization or improve their utilization of the cloud, and generally become more efficient. So you have experts out there in the world that are happy to help. Frost and Sullivan as well can advise you on that. So you're in good company here. Make it a priority and reach out to all of us.
Excellent. Thank you. Fred, you want to show some slides? You want to close with a quick comment?
Yeah, I think we can show the slide, quick slides, to summarize what we've discussed, right? When you look at cloud sustainability, it applies to every single industry across the space, right? And every single industry has a common goal. They want to achieve some of the SDG goals, and climate action is right front and center of it. In addition to that, you're not to miss out the aspects on energy, water, and other SDG goals on this, right? And I don't know if people saw the recent report of the Sustainability Development Goals, right? I don't have to explain this infographic, right? But what it showcases is across the SDG goals and across geographies, we are far behind where we need to be, right? So the headline, which I put here, is we need to drive sustainability at scale. We need to do it at speed, but also make sure in a way that we are stewards of the environment, right? And for me, I think digital is going to play a role in this. Cloud is going to be playing a very significant role in this, right? And the last slide to wrap it up is that's why I see, the future of sustainability and circular economy, right, is going to be shaped what we call as the 6 Ps. Jonathan was talking about, the importance of regulation, right? Everything is going to be starting with policies, right? I mentioned about the product piece, right? How clouds, yes, can be designed in a manner that their footprint can be really reduced, but we can enhance their handprint of how cloud handprint can really influence cities, manufacturing, industries, and agriculture. But with cloud, we can untap some exciting opportunities on processes, because never before have we had the capability of mapping workflows to the extent where we are able to identify synergies between water, energy, and materials. The 4th P is people and personas. Cloud and AI has clearly shown we can really drive productivity at different personas in people. And then the 5th one is partnerships. We talked, I think Ian talked about, the consumer, the two sides of the coin, as it were, right? Partnerships are going to be crucial in terms of how we are going to drive sustainability. But the 6th and the most important one is for the cloud to be sustainable, we need to start looking to see how enterprise owners are measuring, monitoring, but also reporting, and more importantly, verifying their claims. As Marina mentioned, transparency is going to be key, in this case, right? So I just wanted to share that. And it was very interesting that, that summarizes pretty much, the points that each one of us have shared in the last 1 hour. So it's quite interesting that the 3 slides pretty much summarizes those points.
Excellent, Fred. Thanks so much. So, I just have a few closing words. The idea of this webinar was, kind of that that I don't know, maybe we were imagining a future scenario. Just a few years out. we think that the cloud will no longer be just the infrastructure behind our applications, our digital services. The cloud will be one of the most critical battlegrounds in the fight against climate change. That was the starting point, the key idea behind this think tank, this webinar today. But of course, today, as we have discussed, cloud and sustainability, they have no longer separate agendas. So they are two converging forces that are shaping the future of businesses around the world. And this convergence of cloud and sustainability, it's not only not just an operational challenge. We firmly believe that it's the blueprint for future competitiveness. So here we're talking about purpose, but we are also talking about profit. And those who do not master this combination of cloud and sustainability will be left behind, both in the digital and the environmental race. And those who do master this, they will lead and they will succeed. So I think that's my key takeaway today. I want to thank again all the panelists. Marina, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you with us. Jonathan, likewise, a pleasure meeting you. And well, Fred and Ian, of course, my first colleagues.